In this video, we're going to go through over 40,000 finance layoffs that have been recently reported through different headlines, as we can see here, through banking sector, UBS, Citigroup, HSBC, many other banks are cutting jobs. We're going to go through some job searching tips in 2025, how messy it's getting. And we're going to go through some real little clips of manlets like this who've got some interesting experience to share with us. Now, if you're someone who has been dealing, that part was a joke. In order to make it interesting, I'll make some jokes. Don't get offended, anyone. So if you're in finance firms or other professional careers, I'm helping my clients who are focused on freedom, focused on building more financial stability for themselves, right? I've worked at Goldman, Morgan Stanley, HSBC, many other firms. And if you're dealing with some layoffs, and there's tens of thousands of finance professionals who've dealt with layoffs and many top companies in recent years, I know how it works, right? I've survived a lot of that difficult office politics dynamic, lots of the difficult job searches I've done myself at top finance firms, investment banks, private equity, hedge funds, things like that. And I help my clients do the same. Now, I've helped clients recently actually secure high-paying jobs in the tech industry, which is paying over 200,000 US dollars. I'm working with other clients dealing with their promotion strategy, their job search strategy, interviews at many top FANG companies. And if you're interested in really progressing your career, let me know. Link in description to speak with me directly. And don't wait until 2026, because those bad headlines are just going to get worse. More of an unstable economy, less people with disposable income, more competition in the job market. If you want to avoid that type of scenario, it's best to get started with pushing forward your career now in the fourth quarter of 2025 before we move forward into 2026. Now, we're going to go through some of those headlines in a moment, but let's start with this little clip here.
Applied to 196 jobs this summer. And maybe I did get ghosted by 147 jobs and rejected by 46. But I did get 19 first round interviews, which is amazing. Shout out Prep AI. And I also managed to get 11 second round interviews. And 6 final round interviews, thank you very much. In the end, I actually got 3 job offers. I declined 2 and accepted 1, which I'm really excited about.
So just very briefly, let's go through some of the statistics in his job search, right? So he applied for 190 jobs, 147 jobs ghosted him, ignored him, 46 jobs rejected him, 19 jobs he had a first round interview, 11 jobs he had a second round interview, and for 6 jobs he had a final round interview, and then he got 3 job offers in the end. Now, this is interesting because out of 190 jobs, he basically got ignored for 147. Then he got 46 rejections. So only 46 of those 190 companies were polite enough to send him a rejection email instead of just ignoring him. Then he got 19, so let's just say 20 first round interviews, and then 6 final round interviews, and then 3 job offers. Now that sounds like crazy statistics in terms of how much effort it takes, but this is what is happening in the job market now because it's so slow. Companies are picky, companies are interviewing people multiple times for the same job. You get like 6 interviews, 9, 10 interviews for the same job, many rounds of interviews, and then it's good he ended up with 3 job offers, so you can pick and choose and use some salary negotiation tactics that I would teach my coaching clients to leverage one job against the other to secure a higher paying salary. So that's quite interesting. Let's listen to more clips here.
But I see it too. Seeing so many capable, smart software engineers who have 1 to 2, maybe 3 years of experience in the market because big tech overhired in 22 and 2023. Not only competing with each other, but also AI. My advice, if you're an entry-level software engineer, do not go to FANG, go to early stage startups, go to healthcare companies, go to fintech companies, anywhere you can to get some experience. Because what you're gonna realize as you go up in your career is that coding is just one piece of the puzzle. What's gonna separate you from AI, it's the little things. It's your creativity, it's your project management skills, it's your ability to work with people. All of that you get through experience, wherever you can get it. Do that and you'll level up.
This is what I tried to point out in another recent video about layoffs, where those people skills matter, getting those entry-level jobs matter in terms of being able to have those soft skills that AI can't replicate. So it could be intermediary roles you have between your tech experience and what AI can do, where you can be the intermediary to help manage those processes, right? And the thing is, creativity, this is very important, right? Creative skills, things that AI can't necessarily do in terms of creative thinking around some of the tech type of roles is important. Project management, doing project management certifications, developing people skills, some of these things I cover in my coaching, because a lot of it comes down to underhanded, unspoken people management skills, but people skills and soft skills and understanding the nuances of office politics that can give you a lot more job security through managing that effectively.
The jobs numbers are about to get substantially worse for Donald Trump. Let me tell you why. It's estimated between 140 and 165,000 federal employees took the deferred resignation program, and nobody has a solid number because the government can't agree on their own numbers. So we're just going to go with 150,000. Now, of that number, only 50,000 of those individuals were eligible to retire, which leaves 100,000 workers that are without jobs. By conservative estimates, only about 35,000 of them have been able to find new gainful employment. Right now, instead of working, the remainder are sitting at home drawing their normal checks on some sort of vacation. Come the end of September, all of them become unemployed. Now, the administration did this deferred resignation program in hopes that in the meantime, between stopping work and September, all of these employees would miraculously somehow find employment in Trump's new economy. But Trump's new economy is closing job opportunities. States aren't hiring. Cities aren't hiring. Private businesses aren't hiring. So these workers, they're not getting employed. They're not finding employment. And come the October jobs number, if Donald Trump thought 14,000 new jobs created in the month of May was really bad, wait until October hits and you've got negative 100,000, because we're on the path for that. And October is a really bad time for a number like that.
This is very important what he's pointing out here, because I've made a live stream, if you look at one of my earlier live streams, I think it's the first live stream, about how we can trust layoff statistics, because it's so obviously they're going to be rigged, because every leader of a country is going to make the economy look better than it actually is. So they're going to manipulate the layoff statistics slightly. Now, given some of these government layoffs he went through, so he said, firstly, government layoffs is kind of a red flag, because typically government jobs are secure, or they're considered secure, but we're seeing layoffs not just in America, where you have more right-wing leaning government, but even in the UK, where you have more left-wing leaning government, right? And many people are losing their job. In this case, he mentioned in America, 150 government jobs are going. 100,000 of those people are job hunters, 50,000 are eligible to retire, which means that you've got 100,000 people searching for jobs who lost their government job. They're probably getting some payout, some layoff package. Typically governments might pay off quite well if they're firing a lot of employees, so maybe they live on their savings. Some might retire early, some will have investments and things like that. But many people are going to be dealing with a rough layoff going into the holiday season, right? When they have Thanksgiving, Christmas, want to buy family members presents and have a good type of end of the year. But now they can't do that, right? Because the company budgets are typically closed for hiring towards the end of the year. And that's what I'm telling you about my career coaching, to get started now before you're dealing with a flooded job market going into next year. The whole point is that the economy is very bad. Everyone's pretending it isn't as bad as it is, right? They might say, oh, we're going to work on improving jobs and infrastructure and help people. But how many times do you need to see this government is really not doing that? That's why you got to be proactive, support yourself, and take action to support yourself.
At Cornell, I've applied to over 300 jobs. Who has a job right now? It kind of sucks because the school's expensive. I'm an econ major. I have a 3.7 GPA, and I cannot get a full-time job. The only reason I'm not broke is because I've saved up working on campus and then also doing class action settlements on claim. Basically, brands pay you out. So I made like 8K doing that so far. Definitely recommend it. It's passive income. But if I didn't have that, I would literally be broke. I cannot get a job. I don't know, I might be cooked. What do I do?
He said he went to Cornell. He had a econ major, I think, and he has the right qualifications, applying for 300 jobs and can't find it. And he's still living on his savings and working on his previous job, his type of side gig, his side job that he had while he was at studying at university and things like that. This is what I'd recommend you to plan ahead for, trying to get experience in your industry before you are graduating. Any type of experience you can get, one opportunity leads to the other, and not just focused on getting top grades, as I've covered in some of my other recent videos. You need to be constantly planning ahead.
Keep talking about this, but I got laid off from Microsoft. My boyfriend also got laid off. He didn't work at Microsoft. He worked at a boutique consulting firm, but he was Canadian. So he basically got deported and had to leave back to Vancouver. When I found out I got laid off, I was just like, great, now we're in the same boat. And the only saving grace I have right now is that my lease ends next week. so I don't have to worry about paying rent. And my family lives in New York City because I'm from here, so I'll be able to stay with my sister or my parents or something like that. But I really feel for anyone who's not from America and you got laid off and now your visa is expiring, and if you don't find a job in time, it is such a stressful experience. In general, getting laid off is such an emotional roller coaster, because when it first happens, and this is coming from someone who doesn't have a dependent or any serious responsibilities, which I'm grateful for at the moment, first it's a shock. And then you get a little bit happy because you're like, all right, I'll have some time to myself. Maybe this career path wasn't right for me. I'll figure things out. And then you're like, oh shit, what am I going to do? Because I'm not having a steady income come in. And then you're like, okay, but I'll have a severance for a few months. So it'll be okay. And then you're like, but the severance is going to end soon. So you just keep flip-flopping back and forth. And honestly, I did not expect TikTok to be a form of coping for me. Honestly, talking to my phone has.
And there really is an emotional roller coaster. You know, kind of funny she's kind of mental breakdown using a phone as a coping mechanism, which isn't the smartest thing to do. But it's the type of situation people are in where they're, you know, on social media, which I don't recommend you do, but obviously we can use this as a learning mechanism. And the thing is, like, what is your plan B? You should always be working in a company where it's like, what is your plan B? Whether it's your savings and investments you might have to rely on for a little while. Do you have a side income? Do you have another way of working elsewhere? If you are working abroad, you have to bear in mind the deport risk. Many people, for example, in the UK want to work in Dubai or Abu Dhabi or Qatar, but if you lose your job there, what happens? Are you going to get kicked out of the country? Do you have like 90 days to find another job before they do ask you to leave? What is the scenario you're dealing with, right? What is the temporary relief you're gonna have to find for yourself? And this guy got deported. I think she said her boyfriend got deported back to Canada. You know, kind of funny, to be honest, like dealing with mass deportations, Canadians, right? Isn't that a movement for Trump? The point is, you know, you have a lot of risk with any job. Nothing's really stable. Be careful if you're doing the whole relocation thing for a job. What if it doesn't work out? What is your plan B? You should always have a plan B. You always be applying for another job, or be thinking about what your circumstances are, particularly if you're not in a living area like New York. Like, what are your real opportunities here? Don't get too reliant and complacent. Oh, Microsoft's just going to hire me forever. I'll be fine. Now, if we go and look through this little article here, it goes through mass layoffs that are hitting the banking sector, right? UBS, Citigroup, HSBC. Now let's go through some of the key highlights here. So all these major banks have announced significant layoffs. Let's see how that actually impacts people over time. So we've got Citigroup, right? Saying Citigroup has announced extensive restructuring plans and they're eliminating 20,000 jobs and approximately 10% of its workforce. Then it's going through Deutsche Bank, that is cutting 3,500 jobs in the back office functions. UBS is undergoing drastic change. They've acquired Swiss. They're going to be cutting 10,000 jobs. Goldman Sachs is laying off 3 to 5% of their employees, particularly vice president roles. Now let's pause there. Because I remember working at Goldman Sachs and how everybody wanted to make it to vice president. If you're at the more junior level, analyst or associate role, you really want to make it to the vice president role. You're working hard and you're really trying to make it work out for you. And you go through all this length, late nights working, early mornings, sucking up to the right people. And you make it to vice president, typically a high paying 6-figure role. That's when you've technically made it, right? What he's saying is they're focusing on laying off a lot of those mid-level managers, right? The vice presidents. And that's how brutal it is. It's like you work hard to get there, 5 years, maybe 7, 8 years to get there. And then you're dealing with a layoff, right? And then it's very difficult to deal with. It's like if you're trying to climb to that point just to have the rug pulled from up under you. And before I mentioned Citigroup, I made several videos on Citigroup and how the CEO, Jane Fraser, and her, I think the chief technology officer, they're working together to actually cut a lot of jobs because they want to save a lot of money. They're doing a transformation process, which is just make everything more efficient and cut loads of jobs. Now let's keep going. HSBC, I've made videos about this guy, the CEO of HSBC Elderly or whatever he's called, is going through like an 2 billion cutting initiative, cutting 8% of their staff, specifically focusing on firing a lot of middle management, which I've covered in my previous videos, closing some of the payments apps, impacting 400 jobs here. There's so many job cuts going on. Barclays is cutting people, trimming their workforce, cutting several hundred employees, spanning global markets, research and corporate banking. Global markets is another word for sales and trading. So they're cutting a lot of high paying jobs. Some UK banks like Lloyds banks are cutting 1,600 roles. And And then Singapore group are cutting 4,000 roles, contract and temporary roles. Then it goes through other jobs that are being reserve banking, other banks within India, for example. And it really is quite brutal, right? You've got all these banks that are cutting so many jobs, and it's typically, okay, we want to make things more efficient, remove layers of middle management, automate some of the junior roles to being done by AI. So it's like almost everyone at every level is being impacted. You can't just say it's just the junior employees that are suffering. It's saying right here, the cumulative impact, the overall effect of these announcements is a concerning reality, right? What he's pointing out is that the banking industry used to be a stable and prestigious career path, but it's no longer immune to a large-scale upheaval, right? Strategic restructuring, digital transformation, regulatory clampdowns, fraud, outright fraud. It is outright fraud. Employees are increasingly bearing the brunt of institutional decisions. And this is the thing. There's a lot of dodgy practices at big banks. You see these scandals come up every year or so. There's always something they're doing to make the money, right? There are always job cuts, there are always scandals, there's always strategic restructuring or projects like they put here, and a lot of people are suffering the consequences of dealing with this these kind of CEOs, ruthless corporations that are really putting people in a position where they can't really do anything apart from worry about their constant survival in some of these industries. And what's interesting here is they say the banking industry used to be a stable and prestigious career path. Now, it's not as prestigious as it used to be, right? It's losing their brand value over time. Many of these, what ended up happening, just so you know, many banks used to have a good reputation, everyone wanted to work there. And then when the tech sector got launched, you know, like a Google, Amazon, everybody wanted to go there. So all the skilled workers coming out of university could either go into big banking or big tech. And many people were going more into big tech. So big banking, they tried to make their work environment more informal. And on top of that, both of them are cutting a lot of jobs. So a lot of the prestige has kind of been sucked out of these companies. They're not as prestigious as they used to be, right? Your Goldman Sachs reputation 20 years ago and now is really completely different. And then, you know, there's some instances of this where they lose their reputation. Particularly troubling is the lack of transparency and support around these layoffs. In many cases, employees are offered little money in their payoff package to leave the company, very little retraining opportunities, and there's, particularly if they're working in an emerging market where there's not much social security for the government, from the government, and people losing their jobs and they won't be able to find another job. So this whole thing about no support is creating a bitter reaction from people. People are very angry about it. And workers, when they find their next job, whatever it will be, even if they have to take a pay cut just to find any job they can take, there's going to be a lot of resentment and a lot of detachment. And that's what you're going to see. You see it in the workforce right now. There's a terms I've covered in my other videos about quiet cracking, where people are getting fed up with their jobs and they're just sticking around even though they're burnt out. Great exhaustion, where people are exhausted with their jobs and they're just trying to stick around with it. There's all types of instances like this where people kind of burn out, they've had enough, but they just keep going. What ends up happening is they're just going to become detached from the work. And I see this. You see, there's a lower level of quality of service. People just hate their job, hate their life, and everything's just lower quality now because people are just like, what's the point of putting their work into a system when they're not getting much back from it? Now, job searching is getting quite difficult in 2025, as you can see here on your screen. And we're going to go through some kind of key lessons we can take from this. Firstly, it says entry-level roles are deteriorating. Managers are targets for layoffs. As I covered before, middle managers are losing their jobs. And retirement isn't all up, it's cracked up to be. One Gen Xer told Business Insider of what she learned when she was laid off. The day I got the news, it was like going to the worst surprise party I've ever been to. And then a millennial says, I keep hearing employees talk about no one wanting to work, but I desperately want to work. I struggled to find a job for 4 years and no one wants to talk with me. So you've got Gen X struggling with dealing with a layoff because they're in middle management. Gen Z frustrated to find a job because so many people are applying for jobs and not many people are hiring. Then you've got a millennial who's dealing with other people who are disillusioned with work and don't want to work. So Gen X, Gen Z and millennials all struggling in the workplace. Here it says it all stems from the current economic moment, right? Where companies are hiring at the low rates in a decade. They're looking to cut costs, but it feels different depending on your career situation, right? So people at all levels, as I covered, are really struggling. Here we've got someone who's like in Gen Z. They say, I was applying for jobs, I felt rejected, and I felt like it was so stupid applying for jobs because I kept getting rejected. She had completed a bachelor's in 3 years. She did hundreds of job applications, couldn't find a job, ended up working as a waitress, and she finally landed a job working in media strategy by networking with a family friend who helped her. And this is what I mean, right? People are making so many job applications and they're just having to rely on maybe a family friend, a friend of someone they know who's going to help them hook them up with a job, because it's so difficult going through the traditional interview process. Here it says, my parents have such a different mindset. They just can't understand how difficult it is to applying for so many jobs and not getting any jobs, right? Not getting any job interviews or not getting any job offers. Many people feel the traditional pathway to success is failing. Doing a good resume, getting an internship, getting a college degree is not translating into stable job offers. And that's just the reality for many people here, right? They're working super hard and it's just not paying off at all, right? They aren't transferring into a stable job and it's becoming quite difficult for them. Now, what are the reasons for this? Because many people just like to blame everything on AI, but there's a lot more to it, right? Firstly, you've got the compounding effect of less government jobs, less entry-level jobs, right? More jobs going to migrants, more jobs being outsourced, more jobs being taken by AI. You have the higher interest rate that led to less investments. Then you've got a high supply of many people dealing with layoffs, so more people are competing for the same jobs. And then you've got cost cutting, you can see on the screen right now. Government jobs have been cutting, so many people are going from the safe government jobs into the private sector, looking for any job they can get, looking to work at non-profits, other government agencies, public health centers, and AI jobs typically impacting entry-level jobs or some of the outsourced jobs. And then also you've got all this type of where people are going and paying a lot of money for expensive college and university degrees. They have tons of debt and they don't have any jobs. Now, if you relate to some of the stories we shared here, right, you relate it to what I shared with these very many brief clips. People dealing with layoffs, I covered finance in detail, but you've got these stories from other individuals across other industries. If you're struggling with a layoff, struggling with a job search, I've been working with my clients to help them find the best job possible, dealing with a difficult job market but navigating it effectively. If you're at a job currently, I'll give you typically great advice to deal with promotions, office politics, difficult managers and co-workers, and how to really navigate that well when you're dealing with a very difficult situation before 2026, when things are just going to get worse and strategy is going to just take more time. So, link in description to speak with me directly, and I'll see you in the next video.